We've come now to our Friday feature Movie Spotlight, reviewing the latest releases at the Korean box office and online. And we do that with the help of our film critics. First, we have with us Jason Bechervaise. Jason, hello, it's good to see you.
Hello, Django. It's great to be here as always.
And we have Mark Raymond here with us as well. Mark, hello, it's great to see you too.
Nice to see you again.
Okay, so we're back to reviewing two films again this week, one local and one international. The new major release is the latest Martin Scorsese film, but we'll talk about the local release first this week, so we can give the Scorsese film the weight I suspect it deserves. So, the local release this week is a rom-com called Love Reset, or 30일 in Korean, which means 30 days. We're actually coming to it a bit late because it was released at the start of the month, but it's still performing well, and with no major local release this week, we thought we would spend some time to talk about it. So, Jason, understand that this one is targeting younger crowds.
Indeed, rom-coms, of course, both here in Korea and also in Hollywood, have traditionally targeted the under 30s and certainly under 40s. But I saw this film this week with a small group of older women, which was interesting, and they certainly seem to be enjoying it. It reunites Jung So-min and Kang Han-eul. They both starred in the comedy 20. In this movie, they play a couple. We see them get married at the beginning of the movie, despite some somewhat comical opposition from the parents. Now, fast forward a couple of years, and basically they hate each other's guts. It's really kind of this love-hate relationship taken to the extreme. They settle for divorce. We see them basically slag each other off at the court house during the hearings, and they subsequently receive a 30-day divorce settlement period. Now, naturally, of course, they get in the car together, and what happens? They're involved in a car accident. So,
right, okay.
And there are so many car accidents in Korean movies, and memory loss and amnesia and all the rest of it. And so that's what happens here. And so essentially what happens is they're back at a place where they don't know each other. And so the family members basically construct a plan to try and finalize their divorce and get them to recall why they hate each other. But will they actually fall in love again? So that's pretty much the synopsis there in a nutshell. It's directed by Nam Dae-jung. He's made a couple of movies, including The Last Ride. So, there you have it.
Right,
another
quite a high concept setup.
Just a bit.
But Mark, let's get straight into it. What do you think?
I like.
I think I'm just you rolling your eyes there.
I like romantic comedies, and I found this is part of like a subgenre of which is there's a lot of these movies in the 30s and 40s, like these remarriage comedies, where the characters would start being divorced or in the process of getting divorced, and then the movie be about them getting back together. And there's a lot of really great movies in that with that plot. Like His Girl Friday is a famous one, and. This one has some of that same structure, brings in, like I said, the memory loss kind of almost like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind kind of idea. But I really was annoyed by this movie for most of it, especially the first hour. It's kind of a structure where the first 30 minutes of the movie, there's 10 minutes where they're getting married or their relationship marriage, but then there's 20 minutes where they're hating each other, right? And that stuff didn't work, and so by the time it becomes a romantic comedy, which is the last half, I disliked it less. But yeah, and a lot of it's I found it very over-directed and very overacted by the performers. I know that's what they're going for, and it's some people prefer that style. It just was not the style I prefer. So I found it fairly weak. I mean, some of the supporting performances were better, and some of those once those characters get a bit more involved, and the plot becomes a bit more beyond just the two of them insulting each other, which is what a lot of the early stuff is. It gets better, but I cannot really say I would recommend it. But again, probably I'm not the audience maybe for this movie. I would say.
I knew Mark was going to hate this movie. That's why I picked it. It's like
Yes.
we were deciding what films to do, and I just wanted to go through some.
After an hour in, I was almost like, I got to rethink my friendship with Jason, making me watch this movie.
Well, Jason, you might have put Mark through a torturous experience, but how do you find it?
Yeah, man. Actually, I enjoyed it more than Mark. But yeah, no, I agree with many of Mark's points. It is overacted. Although, Korean comedies actually you see a lot more kind of dry humor, which I've actually talked about in this show these days, which I think is really interesting. But traditionally in Korea, it's slapstick comedy that works for audiences here. It's taken to the extreme as they kind of insult each other. We've seen that in Korean comedies as rom-coms before. My Sassy Girl is a famous example. And yeah, it doesn't have the interesting gender dynamics that I think some of the great Korean rom-coms have, including My Sassy Girl and others. But, maybe I was just in the right mood for it. And, it is incredibly generic. You know exactly where it's going. But I can see why audiences want it. And the thing is, the industry needs films to perform. And so this film is performing. It is connecting with audiences.
Sold over 1 million tickets, right?
Yeah, it sold over 1.2. It needs 1.6, I think, to break even. So it's on course to do that. It'll be, I think, the 4th film this year to break even, which is
only the 4th.
Yeah, so
wow.
Yeah, Smugglers broke even in the summer. Also, Sleep as well. There was a Ghost Station, this horror film that I didn't even know actually broke even, but apparently it did. And yeah, so few films have kind of passed that point where it begins to make money. Chuseok was an abysmal time for the industry. All the films lost money. Dr. Chun and the Lost Talisman did okay, but it's fell short, although it probably will make money on VOD. And so it's performing, and so as someone who's watching the industry, I find comfort in that. And sure, it's not a film that I know some individuals will enjoy, including Mark, hence me insisting we watch this film. But yeah, it's fine. But yeah, it's not for everybody.
I think we can leave it there. So that was Love Reset, and you can still catch it in cinemas currently. So now let's talk about Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest Martin Scorsese film. Here in Korea, it has the rather odd title, Flower Killing Moon. That's the title in Korean, Flower Killing Moon, which is quite a butchering of the original title. Doesn't quite work. But anyway, it is the latest from the acclaimed director, and it has been highly anticipated. Mark, can you set this one up for us?
Yeah, this is Scorsese's kind of epic adaptation in both kind of the scale and the size of the both the running time and the production as well, and the budget of a 2017 nonfiction book detailing there was known in the Osage community as the Reign of Terror, which takes place in Oklahoma in the 1920s, where the Osage tribe their land ends up having a lot of oil on it. They become very wealthy, and they, of course, then start getting targeted by these mostly kind of white settlers, and they become the subject of these kind of targeted killings that take place basically over a decade. And we're not really sure how many. It's definitely in the dozens. It could be in the hundreds, because a lot of this was covered up, and this part of American history has often been kind of forgotten. The book kind of brought it back into the kind of public spotlight. So the film kind of focuses on one character, a man named Ernest Burkhardt, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who comes to Oklahoma after World War I. His uncle, who's played by Robert De Niro, is a prominent figure in the local community, and he kind of encourages Ernest to marry into the Osage tribe because he is a single man who also doesn't really have any money. And so he ends up marrying this woman named Molly, played by Lily Gladstone. And her family in particular starts to be the target of this mass violence. She loses multiple family members over a short 3 or 4 year period. And she begins to suspect perhaps Ernest and his uncle are maybe part of this kind of broader kind of conspiracy that is going on to target this group. So yeah, this is The film also stars Jesse Plemons as an FBI agent. Even though the FBI plot is a big part of the book, it's not as big a part of the movie. That really doesn't come into the last hour or so of the film. And it's also got, I think, a really great musical soundtrack and score by Robbie Robertson, who recently passed away and is a long-time friend of Scorsese's and kind of collaborator with him.
So that's the setup. Jason, Scorsese, in his later years, it seems, he's increasingly making these very long, grand-scale projects. His previous, The Irishman, in 2019, that was 3 hours and 29 minutes long. And this one, it's a little shorter. It's 3 hours and 26 minutes long. Jason, what do you think of it? Does it deserve the running time?
Yeah, I had to rush off after this screening because it was so long. Because I had to invigilate a midterm, so I was like, "Why is it so long? Does it have to be this long?" And even though it started like 9 o'clock in the morning or 9:10, I think it was. It is a slow burn, but boy, does it simmer! I mean, it really kind of gets under your skin by the end of it in really interesting ways. Robert De Niro's character is fascinating, as is Leonardo DiCaprio's character as well. But it's so well performed. I mean, it's so well executed, as you'd expect, from a filmmaker like Scorsese. I like the way it kind of plays with perspective, because it's kind of told from various different perspectives, and it's just really well told. It's not a film, because I went in, I hadn't read the book, I didn't even know much about the book, and I kind of thought maybe it would be, a full-blown thriller, but it's actually not at all. I mean, the killings happen, but they're very, very quick. And it doesn't really focus on the procedural side of things. I mean, Mark mentioned how you got this FBI agent that comes in quite late in the film. I think Leonardo DiCaprio was actually originally cast for that role, if I'm not mistaken.
It makes sense. Like, he's the main character of the book.
Yeah.
FBI agent.
Yeah. But he decided he didn't want to play that role. He wanted to play the other role. That I'm trying to be careful not to say too much. But yeah, it's a really fascinating film. It left me, I mean, I had to dash off, which is really unfortunate, because I really wanted to think about it, and I still have been thinking about it. There's a lot in the film. You can't, as you'd again expect from a filmmaker like Scorsese, you can't absorb it in one viewing. And it's interesting how he talks about, the cinema and how he's fed up with people just watching Marvel films. And the thing is, with Marvel films and streaming platforms now, everything's getting longer, and so he's making stuff that's also equally, is actually even longer. Right. And so it's testing, I guess, audiences' patience, and that is very much true here. But it is a remarkable film, and I'll certainly be going back to watch it.
Mark, what did you think? I understand that you read the book as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I don't know if I liked it quite as much as Jason on first viewing, but I did quite admire it. Especially, there's like really great sequences in it for sure. And like I mentioned, I really like the use of music. There's a lot of this kind of blues, kind of folk music from the 20s that Scorsese kind of filters in and overlays these kind of really kind of beautiful sequences, and it's got this really great ending as well. This kind of almost like a self-reflexive kind of ending that kind of mimics like a radio show. And but again, maybe reading the book, I did find it a bit dramatically flat, maybe because I knew the story a bit, and I found a few of the scenes, especially the scenes with the Osage tribe, there's quite a bit of those, and they come off a bit more maybe wooden. Maybe, I don't know if the performances, there was something maybe off there. But like Jason was mentioning, all of the DiCaprio is really great. De Niro is really great. Lily Gladstone as his wife is a young actress, has been in a few things, but is equally as good. And yeah, it does have like a real darkness by the end and a real kind of weight to it that is very kind of effective. And yeah, it's interesting that Scorsese decided to focus on these two characters in the family, who are featured especially in the early parts of the book, but are clearly not the main subject of the book. But it makes sense in a way to because if you make the FBI agent, the character turns into like a procedural or something like that, and that's just not what he's interested in. He was interested much more in the human side and in bringing in more of the Osage's story as well, because that was a lot of the kind of controversy around early on in the film. He had meetings with the native, with the tribe and with the leaders and stuff to try to make sure the movie was told with their perspective in mind, essentially.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about it too. We get to see it from various different viewpoints in a sense, and that's one of the reasons why it's so long.
Yes.
But I guess it's a film to admire more than enjoy, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, there are moments of humour, I found, actually. So it does have enjoyable moments, but yes, it's quite demanding on the viewer.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up there. We've been talking about Killers of the Flower Moon. That's all for Movie Spotlight this week. Jason, Mark, as always, thank you for your reviews, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you.